By the way, in the recent years, the former president's health has been a concern. In 2015, he revealed that he had melanoma and that the skin cancer had spread to his brain. Now, Carter underwent a new form of cancer treatment, and after 3 weeks of this therapy, there were no signs of cancer on his brain. At the time, he talked about his own mortality.
I didn't go into an attitude of despair or anger or anything like that. I was just completely at ease. As Rosen would testify, I think if you have any doubts about my veracity, but I've just been very grateful for that part of it. So I'm ready for anything.
In 2017, President Carter was hospitalized for dehydration while on a Habitat for Humanity build in Canada, and then 2 years later he had a fall at his home in Plains just before the Habitat build. You can see his face in the previous video. His face was bruised, and he was soon right back there at work. You can see him there on your screen building a Habitat home in Nashville, Tennessee. In 2021, he made 2 appearances of note, both, of course, down in Plains. One was in August to celebrate Rosalind's 95th birthday. And then in September of 2022, the couple came out for the 25th annual Peanut Festival Parade. The former president and first lady were driven around Plains in a 1946 Ford Super Deluxe convertible, the same model and same year of the Carter's car at the time they were married. In February of 2023, the Carter Center shared the news that the former president would begin receiving hospice care. They shared the former president would spend his remaining time at home in Plains. In its statement, the Carter Center said that he has the full support of his family and medical team as well. And then September of 2023, former President Jimmy Carter and First Lady Rosalind Carter made another public appearance that kicked off the first weekend of fall at the Plains Peanuts Festival. The Carters were seen riding through the parade and waving to the citizens as they went by. And of course, this is video right now at the Carter Center of Rosalind's funeral. Former First Lady Rosalind Carter died on November 19th, 2023. Her service was at Emory, and that was on November 28th, 2023, and her burial was in Plains in November 29th. That was November 29th, 2023. By the way, folks, from the red clay soil of rural Plains, Georgia, to becoming the most powerful man on the planet, Jimmy Carter never forgot his humble beginnings. Doug Richards continues our look at the legacy of the late president.
Although Plains, Georgia has made its mark as the birthplace and home of Jimmy Carter, the boy who became president actually spent his formative years in a place even smaller than Plains. 2 miles away, in a predominantly black community called Archery, Jimmy Carter's parents planted their roots in the South Georgia soil.
During the dry season, when we were cultivating crops and planting and cultivating and harvesting, we were extremely busy in the field. And Daddy was a very good taskmaster. He taught me the benefits of hard work.
Daddy was Earl Carter, a larger-than-life farmer who successfully ran a country store in Archery and an agricultural warehouse in downtown Plains.
I think you could call Mr. Earl someone who was a large figure in this community. He was a person who was very generous, personally generous to people who were in need in the community. He was very energetic businessman, and in many ways set an example of leadership that President Carter picked up on in his life.
Mama was Lillian Carter, a spirited woman who worked as a small-town nurse and was known to bend the rules.
Mama paid no attention to the official segregation rules and regulations under which all of us lived. She treated African-American people the same way she did white folks. And she could get away with it because she was part of the medical community. Right. Daddy, on the other hand, was, he was, I would say, like everybody else around Plains, was a segregationist. He believed in strict separation of black and white people, but he treated the black people, you know, with great integrity and honesty. And we had a long line of people always that wanted to work on Daddy's farm because they knew he treated them right.
The lines were long because the Great Depression had set in and shaped the austerity of life in South Georgia. In Atlanta and other southern towns, new waves of racial prejudice tore away at post-Civil War Reconstruction and created new Jim Crow laws. But in Plains and in archery, things moved a bit slower.
In this very rural southern farm context, he had experienced a little bit of a reprieve from the racial prejudice and societal expectations that were so common in the 1920s. And he had a bit of a liberty from that.
Young Jimmy Carter was a quick learner. When he wasn't working or hunting or fishing, he was typically reading and expanding his worldview beyond the horizon of his hometown.
So even though he was in what we would consider an isolated community, it wasn't an isolated community. He was given a wonderful education and came out of it with interest in all sorts of things. And I do think that that had a great influence on his ability to be governor, president, and creator of the Carter Center.
When he graduated from Plains High School, Jimmy Carter went to a community college in nearby Americus, then Georgia Tech. But Earl Carter wanted his boy to go to the Naval Academy. And 2 years later, South Georgia Congressman Stephen Pace obliged with a wartime appointment. It put Jimmy Carter in U.S. Navy submarines and sent him around the world.
He traveled a great deal during that time. So President Carter's perspective, already progressive, changed even more during his naval career.
While he was in the Navy, Carter married Rosalind Smith, a hometown girl who grew up just a few doors away from the Carter family. Carter whisked her away from Plains to live in Navy towns from New England to Hawaii. But Carter abruptly left the Navy because his father was dying of pancreatic cancer. Jimmy and Rosalind Carter returned to Plains and moved into a public housing apartment in 1953 and started running the Carter family business.
I was lucky enough to come home from the Navy. I was a full-time farmer for 17 years. But I was on the county school board. I was chairman of the county school board. I was a Boy Scout master. I was a deacon in the church. I was in the Lions Club.
For Jimmy Carter, it was a natural entree into the world of politics.